Our next inductee into the Oklahoma Golf Hall of Fame class of 2021 is Danny Edwards. Like the rugged individualists he admired, Danny Edwards was never hesitant to leap into life's adventures with both feet and almost always land on them. He taught himself to play golf at a PGA Tour level, to race cars, to own and operate successful businesses, and to bounce back from any setbacks in all of those areas with a renewed determination to make good.
Danny's reputation was he was a great athlete. He played ping pong, was a state champion in ping pong, believe it or not. He was also a great basketball player. Not a big guy, but he scored 42 points in a playoff game for Edmond High School. He was the first state high school individual champion for Edmond. So he excelled in all sports. He was even a great race car driver.
There was no golf course in Edmond when Danny moved there in the 4th grade with his parents and younger brother David from Neosho, Missouri. He first encountered the game riding his bike past the football field where he noticed people out there swinging metal sticks. As he leaned against the fence watching, football coach E.C. Hafer came over and asked his name and if he wanted to hit a few. That led to chipping in a neighbor's yard and soon hitting balls he had found in a vacant lot. Then his dad started taking him to the Eastern Municipal Course, which may have been a 9-hole goat ranch, as Danny remembered, but a place to start. Once David, younger by 5 years, started tagging along, it became an exercise in patience as well. David was a plodder, a tinkerer, and I was ready to go, 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 Danny remembered. I'm sure I was hard on him. He and his friend Paul Walters, a baseball and basketball buddy, would hop in Walters' Corvair and head out to matches at Eastern or elsewhere in Oklahoma City. The two even bested the legendary Mark Hayes and his partner in a 4-ball match and then helped Edmond win the state high school championship, leading to a surprise visit from OSU coach Labron Harris. He told me I could make the team by my junior year if I worked hard, Danny said. The only thing I could control was how hard I worked, and nobody was going to work harder.
Digging it out of the ground, almost like a Ben Hogan type of story, so to speak. And in 3 years' time, he became a state champion in golf. Within 5 years, he was one of the top amateurs in the country and an unbeaten on the 1973 Walker Cup. That showed me his ability to just put himself in the moment, focus, and the work ethic he had is just unbelievable.
Edwards cracked the lineup as a freshman, won the Big 8 championship in 1972 and 73, was a 3-time All-American, and off to the PGA Tour, where he earned his card in 1975. The Tour regular from 1975 to 1988, he won 5 times and had 35 top 10 finishes. Danny had more on his mind than playing golf. He combined 2 other passions, auto racing and business, by devising a golf grip that used the tackiness of a racing tire to give golfers a better grip. At its height in 1995, Royal Grip was selling nearly 2 million grips annually, with sales in excess of $15 million. Danny later invested heavily in a company called Green Fix, which made a divot tool for properly repairing ball marks even if it was hard to convince golfers to be bothered. His latest venture is the chipping equation, using science and strategy to shave strokes around the green for thousands.
Probably more energy than anybody I've ever seen as far as when he gets a hold of something, he grabs on and he goes 100% wide open. Royal Grip was one thing, then when he started the divot tool, and now his chipping video that he's got out on his chipping method, which is incredible. Everybody should check it out and look at it, but Danny's one of my heroes.
Danny is easily the most multifaceted athlete that I've ever been around. And I know it starts with golf, but it goes back. He was a great basketball player and an all-stater in high school. And then he became a national race car champion. 3 months after he wins the Greater Greensboro Open in 1982, he wins the June Sprints in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. That's 145 different cars he's navigating around, and it's just amazing what he pulled off. And it's just, that makes you admire what he's done, what he can do, and he's still got open road ahead of him.
Like his younger brother David, Danny has always been able to rely on an inner drive. I don't know where it comes from, he said. We did learn at home that if you're going to do something, do it right and give it your best. His best has now landed him in the Oklahoma Golf Hall of Fame.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Danny. Yeah.
Wow. I forgot a lot of those things that I did, but I had a good run at that. It is just a delightful pleasure to be here tonight and get a chance to see so many people that I got to know through the years. I've been away for a while because I'm kind of a warm weather guy, and it got a little cold for me up here in the winters. But so Mary and I are in Florida now. But so many great memories with Art and so many other people. It was a little bit different for me when I started out. I was a baseball and basketball player in Edmond, Oklahoma, and there was no golf in Edmond. There were no golf professionals in Edmond. There were no courses. There was really nothing. And as it said, I ran across Mr. Hafer one afternoon on my bicycle at about 14 and a half, and I'd seen some guys hitting some balls or doing something up around with this metal stick at the high school, and we lived a couple blocks away. So I kind of sauntered over there, and he said, "You want to hit some golf balls?" And that was really my start. It was very different. I didn't know anything about the game, had no idea what the game was all about. All I lived for was playing basketball and baseball. So as I progressed, I really learned from watching television. I would come home on the Saturdays and Sundays, and I would turn on the television, and I would watch the swing of the tour players, and that was my coach, before Art came to Kicking Bird. So I watched the swings of those players and burned that into my mind, the motion of the golf swing. And whenever I was around a good player, I was just all eyes and ears. It was real interesting because many of you probably remember that Quail Creek Golf and Country Club hosted the Oklahoma City Open for a number of years, which was a PGA Tour event. And Mr. Vosser was nice enough to allow the top 15 boys who finished in the state high school tournament a chance to play 9 holes with a tour player on Tuesday that had volunteered to play with the guys. So I made that my junior year. I'd been playing golf for 2 years, and I made that top 15. So I get paired with Harold Henning. And Harold Henning had the most beautiful tan you could ever imagine, this black and red, beautiful big golf bag, and boy, he was something else. And I was the worst looking thing you'd ever seen in this 4 picture. You saw a little bit of it there. Eddie Vossler was to my right, and of course Eddie had his Defini slacks on and his polished FootJoy shoes with the tassels, his beautiful visor, and a brand new golf glove. On my left in the end was a fellow named Andy Bass. Andy Bass was a whale of a player. I don't know what ever happened to him, from El Reno. And then Harold Henning. And I'm standing there, and I have some shoes that we had made down at a shoe store in Edmond. My pants are about 3 inches up the top of my shoes with white socks showing. I had some kind of a shirt that had a round collar there that we got from J.C. Penney's or something, and a bucket cap like Marquez used to wear. And I am the sorriest looking thing you've ever seen. If you would have had a bet, there wouldn't have been one vote that I would have gotten that I would ever do any good on the PGA Tour out of that group. So we played 9 holes at Quail Creek, and I thought I'd died and gone to heaven, because I was only used to hitting balls out on the hard turf, at the football field, or going down to Eastern, which cost 25 cents, and the fairways were goat heads, we called them, stickers. And the Derrick oil wells were pumping there, and the little kids wanted to steal your golf ball when you hit over a hill. It was a camp out there. So it was such a great thing to get to play in that event. I just was so happy. The golf course was magnificent. I couldn't believe it. So the next couple of days, I said to myself, I have got to figure out a way to get on this golf course again. I've got to figure out a way. Well, I would drive my old Volkswagen that my dad got me for a couple $100, and I'd park on Portland. And in those days, that was out the backside of Quail Creek was out in the country. There was nothing out there. There were a few houses along the 17th fairway there, but nothing else. So I'd park my car on Portland. I'd hop across the fence. I walk a quarter of a mile or so through about waist-high grass to get to the fence that was right beside the 11th tee at Quail Creek. And I would stand there just looking at that beautiful turf. And so I turned around and go back, and I say, I've got to figure out a way to get on here. But if I ever would sneak on here, Mr. Vossler would catch me. He would send me to jail. He would he would get me for trespassing because I beat Eddie, and I knew he had no love lost for me. But after about 2 or 3 days, I couldn't stand it any longer. So I drove over one afternoon about 4:30, 5 o'clock, parked my car on Portland, tossed my bag of clubs over the fence, walked all the way across the field, and stood there at that fence. Said, well, I got to do it. Tossed my clubs over the fence, jumped across, and teed off on 11 and started playing. And I'm telling you, I was talking to my caddy, and I was getting the yardage to the green, and I was listening to the applause of the people when I got to the green, and I was tipping my hat at them. I fixed every ball mark. I fixed every bunker. I raked every bunker perfect. And I played 11 through 17. Came back, hopped over the fence, got in across the field, got in my Volkswagen, headed out, and I was saying, I did it. I did it. I got on that golf course. And I was, so I got home, never told a soul. So I thought, well, I did it. I got to do it again. This was unbelievable. This was unbelievable. So a couple of days later, I came back, did the same thing. Had my caddy right there, had the yardages. Hey, what do you think? What do you think it is to the green? Okay, I'm going to hit a smooth 7 in there. And then I got to realizing that, hey, there's probably golf balls in these lakes around here in the creeks. I needed golf balls, and I didn't have any money to get golf balls. So one night I went over about midnight, trekked across there, jumped over the fence, started waiting for balls. I had my little bag. I filled it up with golf balls. And then I heard the sound of the maintenance cart. So I in the water, I got over really quick and got under the bridge there on the left of 17, and I was just breathing, just sweating bullets. And he came right across and stopped on the top of the bridge. And I am shaking like a leaf under there thinking, this is it. This is the end. I'm going to jail. I know I'm going to jail. And sure enough, in a few seconds, he drove on off. So I finished. So I got a lot of good golf balls, and for a couple years, I did that. 10 years later, I'm at the Bob Hope Desert Classic. I'm a tournament winner now on the PGA Tour. I have not told a single soul what I did. And I walk into the golf shop after the first round and into the grill, and I see Mr. Vossler and Mr. Walser over having lunch, and they see me and they wave. So I go over and they say, come on, Danny, have lunch with us. So I sat down and had lunch, and we were telling stories, and they were telling stories, and I thought, I have got to tell Mr. Vossler this story. I have got to tell him this story. He is not going to believe what I used to do on his golf course. So I said, Mr. Vossler, you're not going to believe this, but I used to park in my old Volkswagen on Portland and carry my clubs across the fence when I was a junior at Edmond. And I would toss them over the fence, and I would play. He said, yeah, you played 11 through 17. And I said, you knew? He said, yeah, I knew. You did it 2 or 3 times a week. And I said, well, why didn't you send somebody out to throw me off the golf course? I was trespassing. He said, Danny, you were a good kid. You weren't bothering anybody. You were just trying to get better. And that was the flavor of those guys, including Art, during that early time for me. And Mr. Vossler was the same way. I would come over here occasionally, and but that was what I was fortunate enough to be around, was men like those 3 guys that loved golf and helped us out so much. There were some other great things that happened. I came out one day to Kicking Bird, my junior year in college there, and Art said, did you hear back from the USGA about the entry for the British amateur. And I said, well, yeah, I missed the deadline. It's already over. But I could enter the British Open if I wanted to, but I couldn't afford to go over there. So Art said, you going to be out here tomorrow around noon? And I said, well, I can be. And he says, I want to introduce you to somebody. So next day, Art said, Danny, I want you to meet a member here, Dr. Rex Kenyon. I said, well, nice to meet you, Dr. Kenyon. He said, Art tells me you want to go play in the British Open. And I said, well, I'd love to play, but I can't, no way I could afford to go over there and play. And he said, well, what do you think it would cost to play in the British Open? I said, well, I'd have to go over a week early. The qualifier, there's 4 courses, 125 players at each course, 24 spots. And if I made it, I'd have to go then over and get another place to stay for the tournament, get a caddy for both of them places, food and lodging. I said, I just pulled a number of $500 out of the hat and said, I had probably $500. Of course, this was 1972. Dr. Kenyon looks at me and says, Danny, I want you to go qualify for the British Open. So, again, that was the kind of, so I go over. I make the qualifier. There's 4 courses. I shoot, actually, I was a third low qualifier at one of the courses, shot 71.70. I'm in the British Open. So I go over to Royal Troon, and I register, and I'm sitting there in the locker room. A guy showed me around there that he spoke a language I couldn't understand. I think it was Scottish or something, but I got my locker, got out, got my caddy, and I'm standing on the side of the putting green looking up this magnificent grandstand, and a lady comes walking up to me, and she says, are you Danny Edwards? I said, yes, ma'am. She says, we have a friend who's playing in the tournament, and I wondered if he could join you for a practice round. I said, sure, it'd be fine. She says, his name is Bobby Locke. And I said, Bobby Locke, I have heard that name before. That's the guy that's supposed to be the greatest putter of all time or something like that. But I didn't know too much, and I was more interested in getting ready to play a practice round. So I played a practice round with the great Bobby Locke. And I remember he made every single putt. It was unbelievable. So in those days, the British Open had 2 cuts. It had a 36 and a 54-hole cut. So I made the first cut. With bad weather. It was 50s and rainy, wind blowing like crazy right at home here, in Oklahoma. And so I actually then had a second cut, and they started on Wednesday and finished on Saturday. So I made the final cut. Was the only amateur to make the final cut then for the last round. And played with Bruce Devlin again. I got on the first green. I got a nice round of applause. Second hole, I didn't hit that good a shot, but I got a really nice round of applause. Bruce comes over and says, Danny, they're clapping for you. He said, these are knowledgeable people here. They all know that you are the low amateur. And so every time I got to the green, I got a great round of applause. And on the 18th hole, when I got about 100 yards from the fairway, from the green, the entire grandstand stood up and gave me a standing ovation. Billy remembers playing over there. Unbelievable. It was an unbelievable thing. So I'm sitting on the putting green for the presentation ceremony, and Lee Trevino's on my right. Tom Weiskopf was on my left as the winner. And they announced me, and I come up and get my silver medal in this beautiful red velvet case as a low amateur. I go back and sit down, and I'm sitting there thinking to myself, there's not one person in Edmond, Oklahoma that has any idea what I'm going through, probably except Art, but not anyone that knows what I'm doing. I'm sitting here. So from the qualifier, I had to get a new place to stay, and there was a guy named Richard Harvey who ran the Porter Cup tournament. He said, I've got you a place to stay if you qualify right by the course. So I moved into that place. The most beautiful lady and her husband there. She fixed these breakfasts that were unbelievable, just everything you can imagine. So I'm there for the week, and so I've finished. I'm low amateur. I'm so excited. I'm wondering how I'm going to tell everybody back in Edmond, Oklahoma. And we're standing on a porch ready to go, and she's kind of nervous, and I couldn't figure out. And all of a sudden, it dawned on me that unlike all the amateur tournaments, big amateur tournaments that I'd been playing with in the United States, where the families opened up their homes complimentary to us, I was staying in a bed and breakfast. And so I reached in my pocket, and we had a big laugh about it, and we all had a great time. And I paid her, and I went then from Glasgow Airport to Edmond, Oklahoma with $2 in my pocket. So there's so many things that happen through the years, and great stories, and we all have them. And I had so many things. I loved my racing. I got to know Roger Penske, and we had a big Michigan 500 Pro Celebrity Tournament that we started for Foot Hospital. Ended up donating $1 million to Foot Hospital over a few years up there, which was fantastic, and had all the IndyCar drivers and whatnot come. So I loved the racing, and but it all came about as a committed kid, a kid that just wanted to be the best at whatever he did. Found the game that he fell in love with, and just worked as hard as I could. So that's my story. Thank you so much.